Hello, everybody. Welcome to our new Monday night show, Monday night wrestling show that we're doing for the month of August. And it's me, it's Rory, it's Chadawago. We're
Hey,
over here talking about wrestling this month, maybe even longer. This is our new "This Sucks Change It" format of the show, where we're just gonna keep watching a show until we get kind of bored with it.
until it
Well,
sucks, and then we
yeah,
change it.
yeah. So
for the
far, we're not
rest of the
getting that bored.
for the rest of the month, may I humbly suggest we change the name to WWE Cooked.
Because we're not
Yes.
raw anymore.
Oh, right.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a comedy show that I got to do one time. If you guys remember Kevin Titt,
Hmm.
he ran a show at Mercury Bar that was called Mundane Eyed Raw, and it was just one of those things where I'm just like, man, the dude's so clever.
Yeah,
Like him in words like this.
very good at it. But
So this month, as David mentioned, we are going to be watching wrestling. I believe Rory said that it's his first time ever watching professional wrestling. Uh, David, you used to watch it as a child growing up.
I tried watching it like in seventh grade a few times. Like I had friends that were really into it, so I would
hmm
sit down and like try to watch like Monday Night Raw or something. But I couldn't get through like the full 3 hours of it, so I'd watch the part where like
Seventh
Stone Cold
grade
comes
for
on or something.
you would have been like 98,
Yeah, 97 for me.
96.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I found that I'm lucky where my grades start in the year that it was. Like seventh grade started in '97.
Oh man, that's
So
way
it's
easy to
correct.
remember.
Yeah,
Like that's something that was very cool for like about 10 years, and then after that served no purpose
yeah.
whatsoever
Nobody
anymore.
cares. It's like the only time that I ever get to exercise that bit of knowledge.
um all right, so that was during the Attitude Era. That was when Stone Cold Steve
Yeah,
Austin was starting
absolutely.
to become a big name and everything. What we're going to be watching is from 2014. uh as some of you that are watching may have read in David's advertisement for the show, we uh we all have the common language of enjoying ska music,
Yes.
and therefore the wrestler who we're watching a character arc on is Sami Zayn, who is a Canadian Lebanese, or no, Canadian Syrian ginger ska enthusiast.
Yes. So that's a great combination of descriptors for the man.
I mean, I hats off to finding one of the rarest individuals, WWE Canadian, Syrian, and ska enthusiast.
Yeah.
Like,
Mhm.
so you posted the ad up today on Facebook, and I got so mad because while we were watching this episode, Sami Zayn, Tiffany was like, "He looks like a fit Seth Rogen," and
Yeah.
then you said that I should be on his head or his body, and I was like, "God damn it, I cannot get away from Seth Rogen."
It's the hair.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
100% just the hair.
yeah.
Although I think that Sammy's hair color is closer to yours than it is to Seth
Right.
Rogen's.
And the rest of me is closer to Seth Rogen than it is to Sami Zayn. So
Quite possibly.
Yeah. Like the Venn diagram of Rory, Sami Zayn, and Seth Rogen. It's a pretty big, a lot of overlap going on there.
Yeah. It's like those three circles, and then right in the middle is Rory.
Yeah.
In any case, um, should we just go ahead and recap the show, or did you guys want to give
Um.
some overall thoughts about how you felt?
Yeah. Let's do the recap real quick. At least we can go over what the matches were that we watched in this episode.
Okay, so let's see. I have a rundown from Cage Match up here. Uh, there was a non-title match between the Ascension versus Buddy Murphy and Elias Sampson.
Yeah.
Oh, also another question about the recap.
Mm.
Do you guys want to know what is currently happening with all of these people, or
Ooh.
does that not really matter? Because you might end up running into them sometime down the line
Right.
if you guys decide that you really enjoy watching wrestling
Yeah.
and we're going to continue to do it.
Well, there's definitely some characters I want to know a lot more about.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
you can just ask when they come
But
up.
yeah. Yeah.
Uh, there's also a NXT Women's Title Tournament semifinal match between Charlotte and Alexa Bliss. There's another match between Mojo Rawley and Aiden English. Another
He's
match
someone
between
I want to know more about when we get to it in the discussion. It's a very
Colin
fun character.
Cassidy and Angelo Dawkins. And the main event was Tyson Kidd versus Sami Zayn versus Tyler Breeze.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't know what a triple threat match was when I watched it, so I didn't understand how someone was going to win. I thought they had to pin the other two and not just
Yeah.
pin someone first, which makes a lot more sense when I think about it.
Yeah.
There's several different kinds of ways that you can do three-person matches.
Hmm.
This WWE's preferred method is the triple threat, which is that whoever is the first person to score a pinfall or elimination wins that match.
Right.
Uh, the version I prefer was popularized in Extreme Championship Wrestling as the three-way dance, which was an elimination style match
Mm,
where the first person to get pinned or submitted loses
right.
and they're out, and then the two remaining wrestlers wrestle a regular singles match.
Yeah, that's what I was expecting, I think. But this way is also very interesting because then you have when someone's about to get pinned, then you have the other guy coming in and kicking you off just to
Mhm.
Yeah.
save that guy. So that's an added level of tension.
Yeah, that I was wondering why they kept doing that until the guy won, and I was like, oh, so that did make sense. I thought it was just because they like hitting each other.
Mhm. Which they also do.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
do that a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel, or is that the full rundown? Are we talking
Yeah.
about our general thoughts? Okay.
Yeah, no, it's normal, yeah.
That's the rundown of all the matches. I did not
Okay.
take notes on what all the backstage promos were or the order
Yeah.
thereof.
There
Yeah.
were great ones. I feel like I've seen so many like clips on like Facebook and stuff of people cutting promos and things that are very much more high energy. These were much more calm dudes talking this time.
Yeah, a lot of the real high energy promos that you watch are either like the super dramatic culmination of like months of feuding with each other,
Right.
or guys back in the 80s that were super hopped up on coke and
That's true.
steroids.
Yeah. I was surprised, like, because I remember from like when I was a kid, like Hulk Hogan
Mhm.
coming on Nickelodeon, and just knowing like from a little kid on that like professional wrestlers were probably hopped up on steroids and cocaine.
Mhm.
And then like watching the match from 2014 being like, oh, they got better cameras.
Oh,
And not a whole else lot has changed from what I remember seeing like clips of and then so
The production values are higher, but wrestling itself is basically the same thing.
Yeah.
There's like a few more aerial moves, basically.
Hmm. And I feel like when I was younger, there was a lot more racial stereotypes and things that I think they've gotten rid of for the most part. I feel like.
For the most part.
Yeah.
That's a real important note. They generally try to stay away from racial stereotyping wrestlers and making that their entire gimmick.
Hmm.
Uh, they usually just use racial stereotypes as like the extra seasoning on top of the dish.
Right.
Like they don't want it to be the main dish anymore.
well that's the
Well
way
done.
racism should be done.
Mhm.
Is just a little bit of tinge on the side just to make sure that everybody doesn't forget, but other than that you don't have to think about it constantly.
Yeah.
So am I wrong in my interpretation of the match where Alexis Bliss just came into the ring and got her ass kicked for like 3 or 4
I
minutes?
feel like
and
the
that
first
was it?
couple of matches were like that. They're very one-sided.
Most of these were all pretty one-sided.
Yeah.
Early NXT, and for those, well, to explain to you guys and also to anyone who's watching, NXT at this point in time was WWE's developmental. It
Oh,
still
okay.
is their developmental, but there was a long period of time where they also were using it as a different style of wrestling from what they had on Monday Night Raw and SmackDown Live on Fridays, which may or may not actually have been live at the time, but that's what it's been called.
Right.
Uh,
It's filmed
but
live in front of a studio
yeah,
audience.
except for those times where it wasn't.
Right.
But anyway, at this point in time, it was very solidly their developmental area. This is their AAA baseball team.
Okay.
So we are watching basically them try and sort of mold and design each of these people. And some people you obviously see who are winning, who
Mhm.
look like they're very much being groomed to become bigger and better things. And there's people that are losing almost immediately because they're currently slated to go on to anything bigger and better.
Nah.
Many of them later do, but in the beginning at least, it's just, yeah, you go in and get your ass kicked and make the other guy look good for a few
Right.
minutes.
I guess that was the thing. Like when I was watching it, I was like, I don't like the commentators were saying that the lady that was winning was really good, and I was like, I don't know. It might just be that Alexis Bliss sucked. Like,
Well, they also mentioned, I think, that this was her second match in
yeah,
WWE or in
Nah.
NXT. So at that point in time, one, she wasn't very good, and two, she's portraying the character of being very new.
I see.
So luckily those two kind of went hand in hand and she got better as time went on, but at this point in time she is what's generally called enhancement talent, which is talent that's there to make the other talent look good.
Right.
Okay,
Like they're the straight guys acting next to the Jim Carreys.
I see.
Yeah.
Because like when I was watching it, like I don't know the difference between a new wrestler that is actually literally not good at the job yet
Mhm.
and a character playing a wrestler that's not good at wrestling yet.
Right.
Because I assume that by the time you're being chucked around a ring, you got to be at least somewhat good.
Yeah.
But so when I was saying Alexis Bliss was sucking, it wasn't her performance that I was criticizing. It was the
The
choreography. I
character
guess?
that she was
Yeah.
playing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Within this match, she wasn't
Yeah.
given the opportunity to shine. Yeah. I feel like it just gives less drama to the scene, right? If it's just that one sided.
Hmm. There, because of the fact that they don't have, uh, they decided to have one, two, three, four, five different matches on
Right.
a show that lasts for an hour,
Right.
along with all of the backstage things that they had going on and commercial breaks and all of that stuff, means that not all of the matches can really have any kind of back and forth
Yeah.
and build up tension and drama. And because they decided to have so many of them, instead of tension and drama, it's four matches that are there to make half the people involved look good, and
Right.
one match that actually really tells a story
Mm.
and sort of guides us in and plays with our emotions. The other ones are just there to be like, this person's good, this
Right.
person's not.
Yeah. So this way you can see the good person next week or when the next time you see him, you know that they're moving up.
Yeah.
That's just that part of their story.
And there were matches where they're not necessarily saying like, oh, this other person who loses sucks. They're just saying that the other person is better.
Right.
Like the Mojo Rawley versus Aiden English match.
Mm.
They don't want to at this point, it doesn't look like they're positioning Aiden English to be a total loser who has
Right.
no identity and no one cares about, because they're giving him time to do
He
his
sang the whole song.
dramatic artist gimmick. Uh, Mojo Rawley, on the other hand, his gimmick is I'm very excited. I'm so
Oh.
fucking excited.
They kept
And
talking about him being a football player.
yeah, he is a former NFL player, actually,
Oh, wow.
undrafted free agent that played for the Packers and the Cardinals, I believe.
Hmm.
He graduated from, I want to say, University of Maryland, where he played with Rob Gronkowski.
No.
Oh,
Yeah, and they're good friends. Uh, because his whole gimmick is his catchphrase, "I don't get hype, I stay hype." uh, and he runs around constantly,
Ah.
going berserk. And his finisher is that he hits you with his asshole as hard as he can.
That was
Uh, you may look at that guy and think he must be a moron,
right.
but he's actually not stupid,
Oh,
surprisingly.
okay.
Even though if you watch him in interviews or on TMZ, where he's a correspondent now, he still
Wow.
sounds like a meathead. He's been working for Morgan Stanley since he was 13 years old.
Oh, wow.
He started interning with them, and then later on became an investment banker. He was, I think, one of the youngest people ever to get their MBA from the University of Maryland Business School.
Wow.
But yeah, he definitely sounds like a meathead,
Yeah.
and kind of is one.
Right.
He's
He
just a
definitely.
smart meathead.
you have to be pretty smart to get the moniker "not stupid" when you hit people with your asshole.
Mhm.
I just never thought of using my asshole as a weapon. So I'm learning things. So
There,
he's
there,
thinking outside the box.
the number of people with an ass-based offense is a non-zero number. Just so you are aware.
And that's why we are as a species not going to make it.
Mhm.
Uh,
I'm just imagining if in the Roman gladiatorial days, anyone ever just hit other people with their ass.
Yeah.
that's the Myrmidons, right?
Yeah, they have good armor on your ass and go ass first towards people's tridents and things. That might work.
Mhm,
Yeah, I want to talk about this Aiden English guy. Like, I like that character. Of
mhm.
he's the artiste. He sings
Yes.
songs, and he's got the comedy and drama masks on his velvet pants.
Oh, I made a joke about him. I got to look him up again so I remember what he looks like.
Okay.
So I can.
That's his
remember
Hitler
the
hair,
joke.
which is
He has,
unsettling to look at.
Hitler's hair, a Van Dyke beard,
Mm.
and is very pale.
Yeah, that was the other thing I noticed. He's so pale. It's funny. It's like he's like the theater kid fighting the football jocks. That was
Mhm.
a fun fight to watch, and it was more. Yeah, there's a lot more back and forth.
That was it.
Yeah.
Aiden English looks like the love child of Street Fighter's Vega
Mm-hmm.
and the male detective from SVU.
Oh. Yeah.
I always mix up that dude with the guy that does
Christopher Malone.
Cash Cab.
Oh yeah. We have the same haircut.
Yeah.
There's barely any hair.
Mhm.
And then,
Yeah, Chris Maloney, that dude's got a butt too.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever noticed, but he's packing some ass.
Yeah. Because I've never really paid attention. You can see some in Wet Hot American Summer.
Oh, so our main character, my joke, and now I can't pull it up.
Sami Zayn?
Sami Zayn, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, my internet is running slow. Give me just a second.
Yeah, while you're talking about that, like, so he's the guy like Scott. He's the Scott guy.
Yes.
He's the best.
He does not have his ska theme.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking. Like,
Which
at
is
this point,
unfortunate.
he's just like a nice guy who tries real hard. I think that's what his character is right now.
Yeah, and what you're going to be watching is his road to success,
Ah,
which did not start on this episode,
hmm.
or rather, uh, he was on the road to success, but success was still very far.
Yeah, there's some bumps in the road.
He
So it's
looked like
satisfying to watch.
the love child of Seth Rogen and Jason Segel.
Okay,
Yeah, yeah, I can see that.
yeah, I can see Jason Segel.
That tallness to him.
hmm But yeah, so he was part of the main event. That was the match with the most action,
Yeah,
I believe. The other two people that he fought were Tyson Kidd, who
seems
they
kind of like a boring
mentioned, yeah, he is an extremely boring character.
guy.
Uh, he they mentioned that he was trained in the Heart Dungeon. If you guys have ever heard of Bret Hart, the
Oh,
Hitman.
Oh,
He was one of those back in the day guys.
yeah.
His family uh, was a famous wrestling family in Canada, and they used to train people in the basement of the house. It was called the dungeon because
Yeah.
Brett's dad, Stu, would torture people when they came in for training.
Like train them really hard, or like torture them, like with
Both.
whips and chains and things.
No, not not
Okay.
not fun, sexy torture. Uh, like train them really hard, and
Hmm.
while they're doing training, uh, demonstrate how submission moves actually really hurt.
Uh,
And when you're in them, uh, be like, "Do you understand how that hurts?" And then you're like, "Oh yeah, yeah, no, I can feel you pulling and twisting things that feel like they shouldn't be twisted and pulled." And he's like, "Okay, good." And then he would pull it and twist it harder.
uh,
So
it's
it was
yeah,
a level of both actual training and sadism laid on top of that.
yeah.
But
that's what all the best training
Right.
is.
Yeah.
yeah,
That's why.
yeah.
That's why he's such a soft-spoken, boring guy because
mhm.
his spirit was broken down there in the Heart Dungeon, which sounds like a level from Kingdom Hearts. It's like Heart Dungeon. I think of that.
But yeah, so Tyson was not actually trained by Stu, I believe.
Hmm.
I believe he was actually trained by some of Brett's brothers, but because he was trained in the basement of the house, he is considered a Hart family graduate.
Uh,
Uh, he is married to Natalia Neidhart, who is Jim the Anvil Neidhart's daughter. Jim the Anvil Neidhart was Bret Hart's tag team partner.
uh,
Uh, the Hart all of the male Harts were professional wrestlers, and many of the daughters ended up marrying professional wrestlers,
oh,
and so they all like gave birth to kids, many of whom became professional wrestlers. But
dang.
yeah,
How many of them
Natalia.
have basements?
Yeah.
Uh,
It's all the same basement.
I think that the Hart family house with the dungeon basement is actually a Canadian, not a national monument, but like it's a historical building.
Right.
Just
Uh,
not much happens in Canada, huh?
yeah,
Yeah. It's so cold. You have to do things underground.
yeah. I mean that's why you're just like, oh, there's not really anything to do. I could play ice hockey, or I could be a professional wrestler. Those are my choices.
Yeah.
Wrestling is safer.
hmm
Real.
And the other guy who is in the match, Tyler
Oh yeah.
Breeze, whose
Serial
gimmick
creep.
is Zoolander.
And not the Rock's eyebrow.
Right.
hmm
So Rory and I we're newcomers to wrestling. I think we know some things like heels and faces, right? Heels are bad guys you're not supposed to like. And faces are like the good guys you're supposed to like, right? So Tyler
Yes.
Breeze would be a heel because nobody's supposed to like that guy. Everyone's grossed out by him, right?
I thought he
A
was
lot
the
of
hero.
people really like him.
No.
He is supposed to be a bad guy though.
Okay.
Sometime in the late '90s, early 2000s, there came to be this idea of a cool heel, which is a
Uh,
bad guy who people enjoy watching,
right.
and the extension of that are just regular bad guys who people like, even if they're not supposed to be cool. And Tyler Breeze is definitely not cool.
Right.
But a lot of people like him because he commits very hard to the gimmick.
That's true. It's definitely into it.
Because that not only does he have like this weird manner of dress because he's supposed to be a Zoolanderish male model,
Right.
he's constantly carrying around the selfie stick. He has an extremely Zoolander voice. Like it's a cross between Zoolander and Cartman, really.
Yeah.
And like it's just overall, he is bought into the gimmick, and he is doing his absolute best to just convince people I'm an insufferable male model.
And people like it.
Speaking of the commitment factor of the performers, the only people that I watched this and was like, oh man, you guys are really killing my suspension of disbelief, as it were the like the ring girl that was standing next to people, and like
Mhm.
that one chick that was doing the interview.
Hmm.
Like the wrestlers would be talking, and then like the camera would cut to them, and they just standing there like, versus like I don't think their agent really let them know what wrestling was before they came in the little dress. Like they they're sitting there watching this, being like, "This is so dumb. Why am I here?" But they're like on camera.
Yeah.
Um,
There's a lot of them, the backstage interviewers that they go through, where they don't really know exactly how to emote in response to anything, and they mostly just sort of smile and nod
Right.
at everything, and occasionally they will narrow their eyes and frown, and that's about the most emoting that we get out of a
Yeah.
lot of them. That's one of the reasons why hopefully one of the later episodes will have Renee Young backstage, who was actually for realsies sports journalist
Oh, okay.
before she joined WWE. So she actually understands what people look like when they're talking to other people.
because
Uh,
that's the other thing. I was like, either get like somebody that knows what they're doing for like an interview, or get another like character actor to come in and play an interviewer
Right.
or ring girl or
Yeah.
whatever they're playing.
I wonder.
the one that was standing in the ring and calling
Hmm.
people's names out as
Yeah.
they were coming down, um, that one is that sort of industry standard. It's not that they didn't have well trained people in order to bring people down to the ring and call their names and everything. The industry standard is not to interact with the wrestlers and do
Okay.
your job semi independently of them. Uh, the only time that that generally deviates is when you have a heel character who is supposed to be extremely aggressive, and then they may try to intimidate or even physically attack the ring announcer, and that lets you know how extra bad of a person they are.
I
Because
see.
there's this person who's just trying to do their job by
Yeah.
saying people's names, and why are you messing with him?
I
Uh,
see. I see. Because like when I was watching it, I all I had to really compare it to is like in boxing, and it's like the girl that walks out and is like, "It's round three," is like selling the shit out of that. Like, this is round three. It's written right here. Look at that. Um,
Now,
and
Eden is
Yeah.
her role is more like Michael Buffer at the beginning of the
Hmm.
fight,
I see.
but uh, they don't really hype up matches in the same way that they do with the larger boxing cards or even UFC, where they have Michael Buffer's brother Bruce Buffer,
Right.
uh, who has like both of them have like a shtick that they do,
Yeah.
but the rest of the time the ring announcer is just, here's this person who's weighing in at so whatever from wherever.
Right.
Uh, but one of the things that I enjoy with later NXT that they do uh, is when it's a championship match, uh, they dim the lights, put a spotlight on the ring announcer to announce the wrestlers who are about to participate in the championship match, and then spotlight each of the wrestlers. So it makes it feel very different from everything else. Like the main event, as far as the ring announcing went, felt no different from the other previous
Right.
4 matches, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. The main event of the show is called the main event more because it's just the last thing that happens than that it's a very important thing.
Right.
It's just the most important thing, but not necessarily actually
Yeah.
important.
It's weird 'cause I feel like they've learned a lot of lessons from doing all the Monday Night Raws and things for so long that they would know to do like this should be like the basic standard things that they're doing in the show. I know they're trying to do something different, but doing something different by making it more boring doesn't seem to be a good choice.
Oh, a lot of the thing is, for some reason, like I said, it's an industry standard that
Mm.
uh, these ring announcers are personalityless and
Yeah.
don't generally interact, or nor do they make things super important unless they've been deemed by the company to be super important. One of the
Right.
other things is with professional sports, like quote unquote real sports,
Mm.
because you're competing with things, the more that you win, the more important what you're doing tends to be.
Right.
Uh, in wrestling, it generally follows that, but the actual importance of anything that's happening is determined by someone who's writing the stories. So a
Right.
lot of times
Right.
they're just like, yeah, this guy's been winning a lot, but I don't actually like him. So I'm not going to make his stuff important. Like, there's obviously other people in the company that like him, and I'm not going to make him lose all the time, but I don't care about him. And so I'm going to attempt to diminish whatever importance he might get from all the wins that he's having. And there's a lot of backstage politics that get
Mm.
involved in stuff like that.
Which I mean that I feel like out of all of the things that I've seen about wrestling, that would be a more interesting like movie or TV show. Is just like because like you're saying, like it's all a writer coming up with it. So like the writers and whoever greenlights the writers is like a huge thing. But like you can't force somebody to write something good if they don't want to. So you can tell them like this person's gonna win, and they can write it badly, or the choreographer can stage it badly, so that the audience doesn't like it. And once the audience doesn't like it, I'm assuming that's actually when a wrestler starts being pushed out, is when nobody's like
Mm.
tweeting them or whatever.
Or if one of the people in charge is just like, I don't really care whether or not the audience likes you.
Yeah. Because it makes me think that's what happened to Jimmy King in Ready to Rumble,
Hmm.
where I've learned most of what I know about wrestling. It's the David Arquette and Scott Kahn movie, where Oliver Platt is the best wrestler that ever lived.
Hmm. And following the release of that movie, they had David Arquette win the WCW World Heavyweight
Yeah.
Championship.
When are we going to watch the episode with Trump on it? Should we do that as a bonus?
I think that's a WrestleMania.
Oh,
Yeah, so unless we all decide to sign up for Peacock
okay.
and not the free tier,
Yeesh.
Going to the DVDs. There was an ad for it, the DVD for
I didn't know
WrestleMania
that.
30 during this. There's a lot of ads during the episode we watched.
hmm
I did not know that Trump was on a wrestling program of any kind.
I've just seen the gif of him getting body slammed around.
But I did see that Vince McMahon, years before The Apprentice, did coin the phrase "You're fired" as his slogan. Which,
yeah, they delivered it very differently though.
yeah, but I'm just saying, like, it sucks that the president and Vince McMahon both have the same catchphrase. Like, that should have been the number one red light. like during that whole election process, no one brought that up, not once. Like you were talking about his tiny little hands and the fact that he's a liar and a rapist. But if they were like, and he stole his catchphrase, it'd be like, whoa, 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 plagiarism. That is like
Yeah.
the worst.
We respect
Mhm.
catchphrases in this country.
Gimmick infringement is what it's called in
Yeah.
wrestling.
There's other gimmick thing I want to talk. There's was it Colin Cassidy was the guy in the one match where he kept talking about he was 7 feet tall.
Yes,
Is he actually 7 feet tall? That's crazy.
he's probably closer to 6'10",
Yeah.
but he is a very tall guy.
Yeah.
He actually has a tag team partner who you don't see at this point because he's currently injured, I believe. But part of his gimmick is that he talks about how tall uh, Colin Cassidy is.
Yeah. If you're around somebody that's 7 feet tall, you don't shut up about it.
Mhm.
I mean, please tell me that he's really small.
He's much smaller.
No.
Like
Like
4
I want
foot
to.
something.
No, he's probably like 5'11", I want to say.
No.
That's not enough disparity for me. If
Yeah,
one guy's
that's taller
7
than
feet
any of us,
tall,
by the way.
right. One thing that I did want to talk about is that guy wandering around the stage talking about recycling.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. Yeah.
That was CJ Parker. And in case you are wondering, yes, that is the exact same name as Pamela Anderson's character in Baywatch.
I knew that was sounded familiar.
Okay.
It came up
Are
recently.
they related or?
No,
No.
no,
Okay.
no relation whatsoever. I don't know if someone gave him that name as a rib, uh, like people just joking him, or if it was something where genuinely no one happened to remember that that was the name of a semi well remembered television character.
Yeah, because that's bad SEO. Every time people try to Google him, they're just going to get Pamela Anderson and Baywatch.
Hmm.
I did think it. I guess like I don't know what it was like for you guys, but like the dudes that were super into wrestling in my high school were like the red state kids
Hmm.
for the most part, and it was interesting watching this and being like, is like as a company, are they making fun of recycling? Is that what this guy's thing is? Is that he's out there making fun of recycling? Like it's interesting watching what the jokes are and the humor is in this, because
I feel
I
like he
don't.
was. I felt like he was just making fun of the idea of protesters. But then I was like, what are they going to make him protest with something silly?
I mean,
Just,
they're making fun of the idea of protesting
right.
and environmentalism in general. CJ Parker, the character, is supposed to be 100% serious about actually being an environmentalist and other hippie bullshit. Like they've gone to that well more than once. There's actually a guy who was a world champion, Daniel Bryan. His real name's Brian Danielson. But WWE uh, doesn't like when people use names that they can't copyright, and they want to steal your name. Like
Right.
if you have a name that you have like made famous, they don't want to let you keep that because they're just like, no, you are you're a freelancer, you work for hire, uh, whatever work you've done to make that name important, uh, it's ours.
Right. Yeah,
So
you're
you
playing
don't
a
get to,
character on our show.
yeah, you don't get to capitalize on it.
Right.
And so they there are guys who have gotten to use the same name that they came up through the independent ranks in, but for the most part, WWE, as soon as you start working for them, they're just like, no, you don't get to use the name that you made famous. You have to get a new name, and hopefully it'll be well known after you work for us. And then once we fire you, we're going to say, no, that's our name. You don't get to use that name.
Right.
But anyway, so this guy, Daniel Bryan slash Brian Danielson, because they can't let you use your name. Uh, at one point, his gimmick became that he called himself the planet's champion. And instead of using a world heavyweight championship belt that's made out of leather and gold and diamonds and rare metals that may have been gained unethically and whatnot. He
Mhm.
decides that he's going to make his own championship out of hemp and turquoise
Right.
and other bits of wood and rocks. And he's like, yeah, we should save the planet, and this is why I'm doing this thing. This is an ethically sourced belt. And he was the bad guy. That was how you knew he was the bad guy.
Yeah. Just all that hippie shit.
Now
Okay.
that I'm not saying that the audience itself is very much against that kind of thing, although there are large amounts of the audience that are. But that's more the company itself and the people behind the company who are like, I think this is bad or dumb, and therefore that's bad guy things.
Right.
Okay.
Because, like you pointed out, Vince McMahon and Donald Trump, they shared a catchphrase.
Yeah.
Vince McMahon's wife was part of Donald Trump's cabinet for a little
Right.
bit.
Yeah.
Uh, there's they've been working together since the '80s because Donald Trump opened his hotels and casinos to Vince McMahon to put WrestleManias on.
Yeah.
That's okay. So
They're very good friends,
Right.
and Vince McMahon's not a good person. That's all
Yeah.
I really say.
yeah. I will say, and I was surprised by this, that um, I don't feel like the female wrestlers in the episode I watched, at least,
Mhm.
were more sexualized than the male wrestlers that I watched. So that was kind of like hey, I think they're making fun of environmentalism and people who sing, but they're not making these girls wrestle in thongs. So
Progress.
yeah, take what you can get.
Right.
This is actually during a portion of history in WWE where they are genuinely there's people involved in the company that are trying to shift the company away from the idea that the most important thing about their female talent is that they be attractive.
Mhm.
Like they're trying to stop hire fitness models and hire more women that love professional wrestling and want to be wrestlers.
That
And
makes sense.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, well, that makes sense if you feel like women are people and not just things you want to put your dick inside.
Right. Yeah.
I, I mean, yeah, but I mean, just from a business sense, it seems like a good idea to hire people or objects that want to do the job as
Right. That are
opposed
good
to
at doing that thing. Right.
like
It's just changing what you consider to be the good part of it.
Mhm.
Is it the sexy part or the good at wrestling part?
Yeah, and it's not like the women that they have are not sexy.
Right. Yeah.
They're just sexy and passionate about the business.
Right.
And sexiness is not the main point of it anymore. And that's where things are going. Currently in 2014, they are just really starting to step away from it. And in a couple of years, they're going to say, that era of making everything really sexist is over, and we're having a revolution to tell everyone how much we care about women's wrestling and how our female talent is respected, and we're going to put on a whole show for them, but only the one time because it didn't sell enough tickets,
Uh,
and we don't respect women enough to lose that much money.
right. We're still running a business. It's
Yeah.
not. We're not running a respect machine.
Mhm. So what what part of this show, in terms of either in the ring stuff or when people were talking, was there anything that really just like grabbed you at all?
I like the character stuff. Like it's just got a lot of things that are like regular sports or more mainstream sports or whatever. Where like when you're like watching football and like nothing really happens for like 15 minutes, and then like a big play happens, you go, oh hey, that something happened. Most of the
Mhm.
time, it's kind of not that interesting. Like the actual wrestling stuff in between like the big cool parts is it kind of lost my attention. But like I like the characters, I like them coming in and out and like the drama of that stuff. I
Mhm.
like Aiden English being the weird artisty guy. I like that there were those two luchador guys that showed up just to do the challenge to the tag team guys. Um, but yes, I like the characters of it. Like I like people doing having cool gimmicks and things more than the actual wrestling stuff.
Okay. What was your favorite? What was your favorite gimmick? Was it Aiden English?
I think it was. He had a very fleshed out character. At least you know what his whole deal was, and I think that was
Mhm.
very fun and not something I was expecting to see in the ring. So,
I think the thing that kept catching me was like the commentators,
Mhm.
because like it felt like out of everybody that I was watching or listening to, only the commentators were like really talking about like it was a sport. So
Mhm.
it was kind of like the joke of it to me was like these guys are the only ones just being like, we are selling this live. This is all real. Everything matters. These guys are going to training and they're actually fighting each other. Um, and like that one guy that was British, and I just assumed this was John Oliver's first job. Um, like that part was like I kept listening into that just to be like, this is the part that like I should be listening to. Like this is like the comic book stuff in a box. Like the
right.
what they're saying usually doesn't matter, but if it comes in the box,
Mhm.
that's legit.
Mhm.
So that was the only part that I feel like really grabbed me.
Okay. So
But also
the
like the other thing that I was going to say is like I did enjoy the commitment to the weird characters.
Mhm.
Like it's almost like watching sketch comedy when you jump into the first part where it's like this might not be good, it might not be funny, it may not be well put together, but which one of you guys is going to commit more?
Mhm.
Like how much do you want to sell it to me is kind of what I was, because I don't know anybody yet, right? So
Mhm.
so like coming into it completely cold, that was my takeaway from it.
Yeah.
Okay. The announcers that you were talking about, there was a three-man booth. There were three announcers. Tom Phillips, who was the play-by-play guy, his job was calling out what moves were happening. And they had two color commentators. One of them was Byron Saxton, and the other one was William Regal. William Regal, based on the name, you can kind of guess that that was the British guy.
Right.
See, I would have thought it was Byron, but then again,
Okay.
I'm literary.
Yeah.
hmm
And it's Todd Phillips. He directed Joker. Right.
hmm that's Todd Phillips. This is Tom
Uh,
Phillips. He's
right.
most famous for mid-flight texting some chick about how much he wanted to face fuck her and not getting fired for it,
So
despite using a company phone.
well, I mean, if they were in a relationship, that but I'm sure
They
that's
were
not what
not.
it was. Okay. There you
He was married to someone else
go. Wow.
at the time. But William Regal, one of the things that a lot of wrestling fans love the most about when William Regal is on commentary is he talks about moves in a way where he's explaining why it's important that they're doing certain things in a certain way, and not in terms of this is like lifting the curtain and telling you like, oh, he's putting the other guy in a headlock right now because he's exhausted from
Right.
running back and forth
Ah,
and they're trying to catch their breath. He's talking about how if you move the head at this certain angle when you're in the headlock, it torques the neck that much more and makes it more difficult to escape. And like you said about them treating everything very seriously, like it's real, he does all of his commentary about moves as if the moves are real, and why certain people do moves a certain way make it so much more devastating than when other people do it.
Okay.
So you actually picked up on something that a lot of wrestling fans really love about that guy.
Okay. The I did realize this isn't really like something that I need to comment on, but I need to comment on it. That guy from Queens, I think it's the tall dude.
Yeah.
yeah.
He should really flip his undies
That
around,
was weird.
because like the Queen's best or whatever, like
Mhm.
the way his like bulge folds, like it's really hard to read Queens. So like I was sitting there for a long time being like, what?
Wait,
And
how
then like
progressive is this?
exactly right. And then like if if you flipped it
If
around, then
he's
you've got the Eiffel, or you've got the Empire State Building
Mhm.
strategically
Yeah.
placed. And that
Yeah.
would make a lot more sense of like looking at your skyline, right?
Mhm.
So just feel like
That
that's a
that
missed
is a very
opportunity.
good point.
Yeah.
Uh, I imagine that must have been very confusing for you if you were looking at a guy who looked like his trunk said "queer best"
Yeah.
and he was beating up a poor theater kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it was like
That's got to be
it was
confusing.
hard. It was hard. Like uh and like there's there's always like, and like I say, this is coming from the growing up and this being the red state guys that were all into this, but it's there's always a certain amount of like homoeroticness to wrestling, um, and generally I'm totally fine with homoerotic undercurrents in whatever I'm watching or whatnot. I think the thing that always throws me off about wrestling when I notice it is that I think, maybe I'm wrong, but I think 80 to 90% of the base would be really opposed to like admitting that there's a lot of homoerotic tendencies in this. But like when those first tag team guys ran out and like mounted each other and posed, I was like, how is everybody not seeing what I'm seeing
Right.
here? Like, um,
There are a lot of people that are seeing exactly what you're seeing
Yeah.
there. And I think that if you attempted to look up fan fiction about the Ascension, Connor and Victor, you would see exactly how many people share your vision.
right. I'm
Yeah.
saying like
So,
even if it's like 10%, there it's $1 billion business. 10%
Hmm.
of fans is a lot, but
yeah.
I'm really talking about like the 90% that are like, no, there's nothing gay there. Where it's like, no, there's a lot of not that there's anything wrong with
Right.
that. I'm a progressive individual,
Yeah.
but like, how can you be like this interested in toxic male stuff, but
Right.
not notice that? Um,
Hmm.
Yeah. I mean, not all man on man intimacy is gay, and it's just got to normalize that.
I
right.
think all I
Yeah.
think also there's a lot of normalization that's gone into well muscled dudes hugging each other while wearing only their underwear.
Right.
That happened not just with professional wrestling being
Yeah.
an important part of American entertainment for the last 60 years,
Right.
but also the UFC,
Yeah.
which a lot of I know a lot of people who think, oh man, the UFC, that's way gayer than wrestling.
Right.
But that's mostly just because they're lying on top of each other for
Right.
such extended periods of time.
Yeah, I think it's more physically gay, but I think the relationship in a tag team where you're depending on each other and climbing
Right.
on each other and rubbing on each other
Also,
to
the
protect each other.
theatrics of wrestling.
Right. Yeah. I
And
think
for
that's-
me, like it's not even like the physical or the costumes that I'm like, whoa. I'm strictly talking about the posed shots, like when they're climbing into the ring, and one guy's like, "Oh, my bro's here. I'm gonna get down on my knees, and he's gonna put one of each thigh around my head and hold up his belt." Like that's where it's like, this is like this. Freud would have a fucking field day.
Mhm.
And then to not even comment on that, especially when like directly after that your heel is the drama kid, like,
Mhm.
and that's where it's like it's sending like that mixed message, and it's like I'm not like sitting here being like, why is anybody watching this, it's gay, like that's not my point. It's the how are you like playing this stereotype as like, huh, make fun of him, he's that weird queer drama kid, but
Both of these things
pay
should
no
be
attention.
queer baiting.
Exactly. That's what I'm coming to.
I feel like it's probably grown from back when I was trying to watch wrestling 25 years ago almost, when it was like Stone Cold Steve Austin and even The Rock was saying a lot of much more homophobic things directly into the camera, and now it's a
Yeah.
little more chill.
Yeah,
as opposed to
there,
stuff
there's much less outright homophobia.
yeah,
Also, like I had mentioned the normalization of a lot of this stuff, but I think that there's like just a large number of fans who would be upset if you said, you watch wrestling, that's gay,
right.
but they'll watch stuff going on and be like, that's kind of gay. But they're not mad at it. They're just looking at that and being like, why would you pose like that? And I think that that's sort of the general thing about things like that. There are characters that are obviously meant to be queer baiting, like the
Mm.
theater kid and everything, where it's just like, yes, this is a bad guy because he's got all of these traits.
He's wearing a
Uh,
scarf and a beret.
mhm.
It
But
just it felt like watching this, it would be like the emotional and political equivalent of me watching like Birth of a Nation and being like, I don't see anything wrong with it.
mhm.
Like um like I just like that's the thing that I just caught out of it. It was just like, this is way, it seems like baiting on both sides of it, but like only one side, it doesn't seem intentional, and that part was just throwing me off.
Right.
Mhm. There's also cognitive dissonance is a
Right.
thing where people can
Yeah.
just be like, no, that's not gay at all. Those two dudes wearing the skirts that are standing straddling each other, nothing gay about that.
Yeah.
Those are two manly Egyptian devil worshipping guys that want to just you know beat other dudes.
Yeah.
Nothing gay about them. And it's just like, okay.
And like I would understand, like I think I would, I it wouldn't throw me off so much if like if it was like you say, like in a fully more progressive environment, but like this still felt like it wasn't really inclusive necessarily,
Mhm.
just the beginnings of it. So that's kind of where I was like, this doesn't feel like anybody would feel safe talking about their feelings or anything.
Right.
But I don't know.
Yeah.
Uh, the guy that I was telling you about earlier, the one that did the Planet's Champion thing,
Mm.
uh, Daniel Bryan, you mentioned this doesn't feel like a place where people talk about their feelings. He was actually in an angle an angle is like a storyline or
Okay.
a character arc where he was forced to go to anger management therapy with another wrestler, and they became a tag team because they spent their time together in anger management, both understanding each other, growing closer together, and finally, uh, well, one of them kind of let go of their anger problems, and the other one fully embraced it and decided to become some kind of rabid gremlin man.
Yeah, so they put therapy and stuff into a storyline. That's fun.
That would be my
So,
new favorite wrestler name.
everything. Yeah, Rabbit Gremlin Man.
Yeah, that
Mhm.
that would be who. That's who I want to be.
Because I wanted to see more. Like we saw a little bit of the Luchador guy show, but like people in mass are like full on characters where it's not like a person's name. It's like a you know gremlin guy or something. You know what I mean? Something
Mhm.
like that. Like that.
They
I want to
they've
see
moved
that.
very far away from that over the years. Also, the luchador guys, uh, you're only going to see one of them again.
Oh,
Oh,
so one of them, this is their last episode. I
Yeah,
guess there's one of those we're not going to watch.
he's going to come up in other episodes of the show, but not ones that we're watching.
All right.
Because he there's no particular reason why they teamed those guys up, or why they put that one dude in a mask. Because generally he was a manager for someone else
Oh.
and his personal ring announcer, and
Oh.
they're just like, but he knows how to wrestle, so let's give him a mask
Yeah.
and call him El Local.
Yeah,
Also, in
that's
order
not a Spanish
to
word.
that was also in order to set up another thing
Hmm.
where a wrestler is going to steal that guy's mask and pretend to be him, but everyone knows that they look completely different. Also, something that I wanted to mention to you guys, I don't know if you noticed during the Sami Zayn match that the crowd was chanting "Ole."
Oh yeah.
I
Yeah,
did.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the reason why they're doing that is before Sami Zayn came to WWE, before he was in NXT, he was wrestling on the Independents as a character called El Generico, the generic luchador. He was still very obviously a white dude with
Right.
red hair
He's got his big
who
red beard
spoke,
coming out of the mask.
yes, yes, and he spoke high school level Spanish. But he insisted that he was a luchador.
Right.
I mean, they're when you told me that they were steering away from racial
Yeah.
stereotypes, I did not think you were. I didn't think that we were going listen, this has gotten a little racist, so like, let's get some white luchadors.
Yeah.
Call it good.
But yeah, there's a callback in a few episodes after this. We're not going to watch it, but there's a callback in a few episodes where Sami Zayn takes El Local's mask and comes out as El Local, uh, where people were expecting him to come out as El Generico.
Ah.
And he's like, this is the WWE equivalent. This is the Daniel Bryan
Yeah.
to El Generico's Bryan
Yeah.
Danielson.
It's the legally distinct, different character.
Hmm.
I like that.
Yeah.
I just. I mean, that's also like one of my favorite staples of like just comic books in general, where someone else is like, "I'm just gonna steal the costume and pretend to be the other guy."
Yeah.
Hmm.
Um,
That was good. I know.
like
And it's
I,
great in wrestling because you know what people's bodies look like. You're like, that's obviously a different person.
I mean, so just did they do the do any wrestlers dress up as other wrestlers to represent the other one in court to like preserve their identity, like Spider-Man and Daredevil have done?
No,
Okay.
in America, you're not allowed to testify under oath in your masked identity. Uh,
Uh,
I don't know what the rules are in Mexico
that's
because I
good.
know that the mask is sacred for
Right.
lucha traditions, and a
Because they
lot of
wear their
times
masks like to like the grocery store and stuff, right? Like, in
some of
public. They
them
won't.
do, yeah. Like they never take off their mask publicly, so you don't know what they actually look like underneath. Like some of them, like El Santo, famously just wore it all the time, and then they would go to events in a three-piece suit and a luchador mask because they're just like
Great
this.
look.
This is what I look like. I am this mask.
I gotta find my luchador mask. I have one somewhere. Someone got me from Mexico.
I respect that amount of commitment.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And the thing is, even now, a lot of times, like even when the identity of the man in the mask is known, there's a lot of times where it's like they just everyone who does know will refuse to divulge that information
Oh,
on any publicly available forum because they're just like, no, it goes against the tradition.
yeah. Yeah. Keep kayfabe. That's the other. That's the other wrestling word I know.
Yeah. Kayfabe, it's Carney for be fake. So, what you're telling people when you're telling them that you need to keep kayfabe is keep playing to the story, keep the illusion going, and then you can break kayfabe when you pull the curtain.
I see.
Right.
I'm just trying to think of any item of clothing that I would be that dedicated to, and I don't think I even wear underwear every day.
Not the same one, I'm
Like,
sure.
I mean, I assume they have different masks, but like, there's days where it's like, oh man, I haven't done the laundry too often, so something's not gonna make it on.
Right.
Mhm.
That's why you'll never make it as a luchador.
Yeah,
Well, some days you're just gonna have to wear the stinky mask.
Yeah.
You just
I guess
can't have the full face mask. You have to have the open nose area.
Oh yeah. I could live with that. I think I could live with that. Yeah.
Mhm.
I think that makes me understand the open nose area more because like if I didn't know that they had to wear it all the time, but if without knowing that piece, it's kind of like those breathing holes that really ruins the mask effect.
Mhm.
But now that I know that, it's like, oh, it makes a lot more sense now. They're never allowed to take it off. That's just their face, but they still got to
Yeah.
breathe.
Right.
Mhm. They're like the Mandalorian that way. You can take it off, but not when other people are around.
Yeah. Yeah. Who else can see it?
Mhm.
Another thing I want to talk about was during the last match, they did like a triple suplex. I thought that was pretty cool.
Oh yeah, the combination German exploder.
Yeah.
The German suplex is you just grab a guy from behind, you bend over backwards, you throw him over your head. The exploder suplex was the one that Sami Zayn did, where he grabbed the guy's leg, dragged it up, and threw the other arm around the guy's head. So he's like sort of making the guy do the splits as he gets thrown over Sami's head. I don't know why it's called an exploder. And there's another move called the T-bone suplex that looks almost exactly the same, and I have no idea what the difference is. I've
Oh.
looked it up over and over again,
Yeah.
and whatever the difference is either too difficult for me to tell with my untrained eye, or there is no difference, and it's just they call it the same thing.
Right. Yeah. Maybe
They just
one's
call it
the
different
Canadian
things,
word for it or something.
like
That's
a hurricane versus a cyclone,
I
right? That's the
think so. Or
when
it's
it's in the eastern
hurricanes.
part of the Pacific.
Yeah,
It's a
and
cyclone.
typhoons. I think.
Oh,
Right?
okay.
Yeah. Typhoons in the Pacific and the hurricanes.
Oh, typhoon, yeah.
Yeah.
Typhoon and hurricane.
A cyclone's just a tornado over water, right?
I have
Or maybe
no
it's just a
idea.
tornado. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe cyclones are on land too. It could just be another word for tornado.
Yeah.
Not like an official word, but just like a nickname.
Yeah. It's the it's that full on exploder
Like
versus
Twister.
T-bone suplex thing. Where yeah, which way means what? We don't know.
Mhm.
As somebody that has both gotten in real fights and done actual stage combat and training for it, like watching this was a little bit. It was neat seeing it being done live, but I feel like because the cameras got so close at certain points, like I feel like the camera people could be doing a better job of showing the action, but also hiding the the safety.
Mhm.
If that makes sense. Because there was plenty of times where it's like, oh, this is that move was really telegraphed, like more than actual stage combat would, which I understand because this is a more dynamic environment, and a longer running thing with less communication and less repeated practice. So I'm not knocking the telegraphing as much, but like just like the camera like getting down, so like when somebody's doing that backbreaker move and they catch the hand underneath it where they're actually just dropping them a little bit, like you could have just moved the camera like just that much and we wouldn't have seen that. It would have looked a lot more impressive.
So in the same way that this is WWE's developmental league, um, this is happening at Full Sail University in Winter Park, Florida, and Full Sail University do a lot of media type stuff, both like game programming and like television and movies kind of things. So a lot of the people that are working on the show, not everyone, and obviously not the supervisors, but there's a lot of people that are working on the show that are actually also students.
Oh, okay.
So they're also learning how to do it. Not that you won't also catch those errors on nationally televised product that goes out to millions of people, but at the time that they were making this, this is our little thing that we put up on the internet. Who watches that stuff?
Okay.
And yeah, let's go ahead and get students to do it. Who knows? Maybe we'll be like, oh, they're good. Let's hire them once they graduate.
Yeah.
I see.
So yeah, not that again, not that they don't make the same mistakes when they're actual professionals, but some of the people working on this are not professionals.
Right.
It's one of the like the. I mean, I feel like this is something that is rampant in every production microcosm I've seen of anything. But it feels like there's usually a huge disconnect between like the techie side of things and like the performance side of things, where like either one side or the other is completely undervalued by the other.
Mhm.
So like either there's obvious things that like could have gone better if they just had somebody that was technically proficient there. Um, like how many movies have we seen where it's like the CGI wasn't there, but if they had an actual CGI artist on set, they could be like, "Oh yeah, we can't do anything with what you just shot. You need to do blah."
Right.
And same times, like there's plenty of movies where it's like Jackie Chan is a great example of this, where it's like all of the stunts are fucking amazing. Um, most of the story is kind of bland, because it's just one side is valued too highly and not the other side is completely undervalued.
Right.
And that's kind of what I was getting the feel here is like, oh, these wrestlers worked really hard to be able to do this stuff, and the cameraman just showed how to do it.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, I don't think that there's a lot of hand in hand stuff between production and the talent, especially in NXT. In Once you get up to the later areas of WWE, when you're on Raw or SmackDown, uh, there's also a disconnect, but that one is more purposeful.
Mm.
It's because they have a producer that wants things done a certain way, and not because there's no communication between the two. And I think that even if you watch the other nationally televised product in America, AEW, uh, they also have a lot of flubs with their production where it's just like, no, if you just had someone who knew that he was doing in the truck and be like, stop showing this camera feed, switch it to something else,
Right.
Yeah.
Like a light or
uh,
something.
everything would have been better. Um, I think Japan, New Japan Professional Wrestling, especially New Japan Pro Wrestling, I think that they actually really work well with their camera crews and their production staff to make everything look as good as it possibly can.
I'd be down to watch one of those. Just
Oh yeah. Let's check that out.
just as like the if we want to do a dessert
If we end up just
after.
doing like a
Yeah.
wrestling show thing,
Right. Yeah.
I was just meaning
It's
like
like
if we
all-
get through the end of the month and that wants to be our aperitif
Mm.
to
Mhm.
digest the American wrestling with a nice new Japanese one, I'd be down to try that.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's not available on any streaming service except for their own streaming service, New Japan World, which is 999 yen a month.
That's like wait. Yeah,
It's
that's only like ten
somewhere,
bucks.
yeah, it's
12
somewhere
bucks.
around $10 because
Yeah.
the WWE Network, when it first came out, they constantly said it's 999 a month.
Ah.
So New Japan was just like,
There you go.
let's make it 999 yen.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna go ahead and say I'll drop $10 and buy a month of that
Mhm.
just
Yeah.
to watch
What
it.
if they do like a 7-day free preview thing? We could do that.
Yeah.
Oh, we'll figure it out. We'll work it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think just go back to the fakeness of it and of the moves and things and trying to hide that and stuff. I think there's also like that suspension of disbelief that you're having to deal with too, with the audience all understanding that it's fake and like there's a lot of the stomping on the ground where you slap somebody or punch them or whatever.
Mhm.
And you're not hiding that with the camera. We all know that's what's going on, right? We're just gonna buy it. So,
Well, and
I-
that's the thing too is like as like a stage performer and somebody who enjoys fiction, like I know Captain America's not really getting punched by a robot arm. I
Right.
know that's not real, but I want it to look convincing.
Mhm.
And like that's like the parts that I was forgiving, where it's like the wrestlers are paused for a minute and like you can tell like the one guy is like, if you just rolled over, you'd win. All you have to do is roll over on that guy and you win.
Yeah.
But he's building the suspense. It's like I get that they're all tired and like waiting a moment before they get into like another big move. I get that. But it was just like the camera work part where it's like camera guy isn't tired. He could stand up a
Yeah,
little bit
exactly.
and this would be fine.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And like from 40 feet away, wherever the audience is sitting, they're not noticing that the way I am because I look. It feels like this is happening 2 feet in front of my face.
Right. Yeah.
Mhm.
You're looking right at it. That also makes me think of like one of my favorite improv shows I ever saw was Chad and our friend John Yabez doing an improvised wrestling thing that they were doing and doing all the moves on each other and stuff. And that was very fun, even though it was definitely fake. Everyone was still very into it.
Mhm. So one thing that I did want to point out with the moves being fake and protected, and like the stomping punch and everything, uh, I was watching this, but I wasn't paying super close attention to most of the matches. A lot of times I was listening more than I was watching because I was taking a large amount of notes because I
Mm.
wasn't sure which things I thought might need to be explained or not.
Ah.
Uh, I don't remember if there were that many chops that the men were doing to each other until there's a point in the main event where I think it was Sami Zayn. He grabs someone's hand, holds it above their head, runs at the corner, and then climbs up to the top. And then he got yanked down, crotched
Right.
himself on the ropes,
Yeah.
and he rolled around going, "Oh my balls," for a while. But before he ran into the corner, when he put the hand up,
Right.
he also just slapped the guy on
Yeah.
the chest really hard and it made a very loud noise.
Yeah,
Was there a lot of that throughout the show, or was that like
I
the
don't think
first
so.
one
I
that
think
you
that was the
saw?
first like thwack. I think there was
Yeah.
a couple other like elbows that might
Mhm,
have gotten thrown, but they weren't to like a meaty thwack point. It was like
mhm.
the head thing, and like there's the limited like stomp, but
Yeah,
not as much.
you're making contact, but the noise is from jumping
Yeah,
when you're doing
Right.
it. Yeah, the when you get those chest slaps, there's no trick to that.
Right.
It makes that noise because you're really just slapping the other dude very hard. Um, there, the closest to a trick that you get off of that is you can cup your hand a little bit to
yeah,
make it slightly louder,
Right.
but when you get the kind of crack that you heard when Sammy hit that dude,
Mm,
that is not the cupping your hand thing does not affect the noise that much.
right.
no,
That is just a real hard slap to the other dude's chest,
Right.
and that is one of my favorite parts about wrestling is just watching dudes like we have this whole choreographed thing where we've agreed to not try to hurt each other and
Right.
we're trying to put on a show for people, and there's also going to be a point during this match where we're actually just going to legit start slapping each other as
Yeah.
hard as we fucking can.
Yeah.
And why are we doing that? For fun.
Yeah. Because people like it. People like the sound. And
Uh-huh.
it's a slap on the chest. You can't. I don't think you can injure someone doing that as hard as you can. As hard as you can stop them. So it's like,
It depends on what you consider an injury.
right. Yeah. That's the kind of
Because
you.
I would
there,
consider it a pretty substantial injury if I had to take my shirt off and there was just like a basketball size handprint
Yeah.
where I'm like, tough day at work.
there's this wrestler who currently his name is Gunther. It used to be Walter, but again, WWE needs to own people's names, so they turned him into Gunther. Um, he slaps people in such a way where it's like if you look at a still photograph of it, it looks like he is inserting his hand into their chest cavity because you can see all of the rest of their skin like exploding out around his hand. He slaps you so hard, he's like hitting your soul.
I do have to say that those are like my favorite boxing photos is just when somebody's
Oh,
like
yeah.
taking a hard punch and you just see the other person look like they're trying to explode. Like it's my favorite.
Yeah. I might write out in that tonight. Snowball of Walter's strong chop. But yeah.
Ah, you
Gunther.
found it.
Gunther.
Gunther. This is an old one. Oh, this is a new one. This is Walter.
So before we get to next week, I did want to actually make sure to say on air in case people are watching that the next episode that we are going to be watching is on 9/11. It's September 11th, 2014. Um, this
Like
is
another
Take
memorial show.
Fatal Four Way. Takeovers are NXT special event shows that have a longer runtime. Originally, they used to run in place of a normal episode, and later down the line, they became a Saturday night event instead
Oh,
of the regular Thursdays that these were normally on. But this is when it was still taking the place of the normal event. So the next show is actually going to be about twice as long as this one. So there's going to be a lot more action, a lot more people that you guys get to see. Um, but I just wanted to make sure that we noted that it is going to be a longer episode next time.
cool. Yeah. No,
Okay.
definitely looking forward to that. And that's what next week I'm going to ask you about how referees work in professional wrestling. That's
Badly is how
what
they
I'm
work.
passionate about. Yeah, they're not good at their jobs.
No.
I feel like if you ask most sports fans, referees in professional wrestling work exactly like referees in your favorite sporting event.
Yeah, that's true.
They are just as blind and just as stupid.
Yeah.
The only difference is in other sports, you can't just have someone run up and distract them.
Throw sand in their eyes.
Hmm.
So I think that's what we got for this week. Thank you for being our wrestling guide, Chad.
Yeah.
No,
Have some of our other
I'm
wrestling.
glad that you guys found parts of the show that you enjoyed. I
Yeah.
hope that as we continue to do this, you find more things to enjoy. And whether or not you do, the next time the wheel spins around, it's my choice. I'm going to make you guys watch more wrestling anyway because I'm a dick like that.
Next time it's my choice. I know I want to watch RRR with you guys on
Oh.
Netflix.
And I will have
Yeah.
Netflix by then because Sandman comes out this Friday. So I'm
Sweet.
going to re-up my account.
Okay. I can talk to you after this. But the reason why I want to watch it with you guys is because I feel like when we're watching the MCU stuff, like I buy into it hook, line, and sinker, and all the stuff that's bad about it, I'm like, yeah, it's a little bad, but the rest of it's amazing, right?
Yeah.
And then like I sit down and I watch wrestling, and it's like, why would anybody wear that? This looks fake. Why are they even mad at each other? Which are all valid complaints about the MCU, right? So it's interesting to me to sit here and be like, oh, this is something that I don't have like a long term history watching,
Right.
but it's still playing to the exact same stuff. So it's interesting, even if I'm not into it. It's still interesting to have kind of like a guided tour through it.
There's a lot of crossover between comic fandom and wrestling fandom. A lot of professional wrestlers are super into comic books and all of that. Like, they're one of my favorite wrestlers, Alex Shelley. He actually, in an interview once, when he was asked, like, how did you decide to become a professional wrestler? He said, well, when I was about 14 or 15, I realized that I was never going to develop my mutant powers and be accepted to Professor Xavier's School for Gifted Youth. So I
Right.
decided to become a professional wrestler instead, since that's the closest thing to being a mutant
Yeah.
that I can think of.
That is a perfect answer to how did you get into anything? Is
Yes.
well, I realized I wasn't going to develop superpowers, so
I decided to try this instead.
Yeah.
I never got my owl to Hogwarts, so now I'm an accountant.
like all honest to God seriousness, that's why I took up performing arts, is because I was like, I'm never gonna get superpowers, but if I take up acting, I can pretend to have superpowers all the time.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's why you get to do that, and then people go, "Yeah, he's doing a good job of that," instead of
Yeah.
just a crazy person.
Well,
Sometimes actors are crazy people.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, everybody. We'll see you next week when we talk about the September 11th, 2014 episode of the NXT Takeover. Never forget.
never forget
Monday.
about our show.
Yeah.
Never forget about our show.
Thank you all for watching. We'll catch you all next week. We're gonna write out on this slow motion Walter's chop or Gunther's chop, whatever it is. Name actually is. Good night, everybody.
Night.